today's video, I will show you a couple of tricks on how to make your animation more interesting. An interesting way to showcase the design concepts and highlight specific design elements is creating phasing animation. It is a technique used to visually demonstrate the various stages of a design project. It involves creating animated transitions that show how space transforms from one state to another. It can be used in various cases. We can very easily create such an animation in D5, but it involves a couple of steps. Whatever 3D software you use, you have to prepare it first. I'm using 3ds Max, but the workflow is similar to other software. To create a nice animation in D5, we have to organize specific objects into groups. Each group includes single elements, like here the slabs. Thanks to that, each element could be animated later in D5. The effect will be way interesting this way. Select the objects you want to export to D5 and use their script. Make sure you check the group hierarchy. You can check selected only if you have other objects in your scene. The most important thing to choose is 2 layers. Thanks to that, we can see all objects under a specific layer in D5. Ensure you have an updated script, otherwise you won't see the layers option. Export and choose the location. It might take a while, especially if you have many objects like in my case. I already imported the model from 3ds Max. You just have to click here and choose the file you exported in the D5A format. If you go to the Object tab, you can see I have this model here. You can see I have each group here I had in 3ds Max. What is most important though, with the new plugin, we can also see all the objects I have in this group. It's not one object, but all elements are separate. At the very beginning, I imported the side model I created in 3ds Max as a separate file to have it as a different group in D5. I chose 1 layer export as I didn't need separate objects in this case. Note that exporting with 2 layers makes the scene more heavy. If you don't need this, I advise you not to use it. The next step was adjusting the materials. So I picked the object with the materials that needed some adjustments and I changed them. I either changed the base color or some of the characteristics here like specular, reflection or roughness. Where I had them up, I adjusted it here, making it less saturated or brighter darker. It didn't take me too much time. Then I added some surrounding buildings from the D5 Assets library to have a nice base for the animation. I added some details to make the scene more interesting like traffic lights, outside furniture and plants. But also I used the path tool to create vehicles and people crowds. Finally, I adjusted the environment and effects tab to get the desired effect. After the preparation, I can start working on animation. So I started with the camera movement. I already created the video where I explain how to do this. If you want to check it out, I put the link in the corner and in the description below the video. Anyway, I set the first and the last frame and adjusted the timing. The phasing animation is hidden here though. You can see that it doesn't start from the beginning. It's delayed a bit and it finishes before the shot ends. Also, each layer is renamed, so I know what objects are animated. To rename it, just double-click on the specific segment. All the segments have the same duration in my case, but we can easily change it by typing the length or adjusting manually. If we right-click, we'll see more options. We can, for instance, cut the clip. Okay, now let's talk about the segment features. From the version 2.9, we have the new templates. You can see there are different templates that we can successfully use for the phasing animation. The drop will be probably the most common used. So let's do this. Now we have to select the objects we want to animate. We can select the first object and click with Shift on the last one in the Objects tab. All the selected objects will be listed here. Whenever you're ready, click Done. If we wanted to edit objects at any time, we can click here. We can delete a specific object or we can delete them all. Another method of batch selection will be using the G shortcut to switch to adding groups. Now we can click any object and the whole group will be selected. We can also choose the object from the object list. Now, here we can preview the specific animation. We can also choose the specific animation curve. I also explained it in the previous video. We can adjust the animation with the time interval. With the first one, all the objects appear at the same time. Cascading animates the object in a smooth, flowing sequence. And with the last one, each object appears only when the previous completes its motion. With the custom, we can adjust the time interval manually. For the most cases, the cascading effect will work the best. The distance value determines how far each object should move. You can see the animation starts much higher now. We also have some visibility options. We can determine if the objects are seen before the start and after the end. We can create various effects this way. We can use these options separately or combine them together. In most cases, I would use only the visible after the end option. However, it's nice to have control. At the end, we have the Effects panel. I explain it in an easier example. Rotation allows each object within a segment to rotate when maintaining its initial movement. You can adjust the rotation degree and access the rotation direction or choose the random effect. Some templates have a bounce effect which can rapidly scale up and down each object when they finish their motion. Now let's go back to the objects. We can sort by object list. It will animate objects in the order they were added to the list. But also, we can sort by word coordinate. We can choose the axis. If we choose the Z-axis in this case, the objects on the bottom will be animated first, and then the ones above them. We can also reverse the effect. Now, let me show you what effects I choose in my animations. Pillars are done the same method I show you. I only added the bounce effect here. The main slabs also use the drop template but don't have any effects. Then the animation of the elements around the slabs is the duplicate of the previous segment. Interior walls use the fly-in animation as I didn't want them to be too visible here. They're flying in from the back. For the vertical constructions, I used the pop-in to make it more interesting. Additionally, I added the rotate effect. For horizontal construction, I used the drop, and for the glass, the implode template. I moved the segments across the timeline so each next group of objects appear with a slight delay. If we need to, we can use manual methods. Let me show you two examples. I already have the camera animated. I start with the table. Typically, in this kind of animation, we drop the objects from the top. To achieve this effect, we have to animate the object. Find a place on the timeline where you want the table to get the final position. Click Keyframe. Now go back to the beginning. It doesn't have to be a first frame though. It depends on when you want to start animation the object. Move the object up so it's not visible in the camera. Add keyframe. Here we go. We have a base. Now we can adjust it. We would speed this up. I can simply move the last keyframe closer to the beginning. It's faster. Cool. Now we can animate things that are on the table the same way. The procedure is the same. Choose the final position, add the keyframe. Then set the first frame. Adjust the speed if needed. Would have to spend more time on this obviously, but I only wanted to show you the idea. Another thing is to use the size for animation. We follow the same steps, but now we'll animate the size. Reduce the scale and add the keyframe. We can animate other objects the same way and create a phasing animation that presents specific parts of the design. Moving objects are crucial in animations. They make it look more realistic. It's especially important in shots like this, where there would be lots of cars and people, a buzzing city atmosphere. Again, we can place and animate objects manually, but in D5, we have a special tool for animating crowds and car traffic. Choose vehicles you want to use. The more you choose, the more realistic it will be, as there will be no repetition. Then you have to draw a path. You can create rounded corners if needed. At any time, you can go back and edit this path. We can also add or remove the objects. We can control the density of the traffic. The line option is cool. We can set how many lines of traffic there is and what is the width of each line. It speeds up the workflow a lot. If we choose dual, we'll have the traffic go in the opposite direction. We can choose in which direction the traffic should go. We can adjust on which side we have the driver. To add even more variations, we can click Random and randomly change the color of the cars. What is pretty cool, especially in the shots like this, is that we can turn on the lights. It's all automatic. We can adjust the intensity of the lights too. We can preview the camera view. I would like to reduce the speed of the cars. Not a problem. Go back to the Path tool and adjust the speed. Here we go. It looks pretty good. The next thing that can add a lot of realism to the animation, especially the city ones, is adding billboards with videos played. In D5, it's all super easy. You just need to choose the multimedia material and choose the video you want to play. We can adjust the color and the UV. The same, we can create the fire material. I show it too in the video I mentioned previously. Anyway, I hope you liked the video and see you soon in the next one. If you like to test out D5 for free, check out the link in the description. Bye bye!